Response video, I hope, maybe, possibly, with this camera. To this Clauslug guy on U Doubled. Did a video called Against Antinatalism. So I'll play some of the audio. The video isn't much anyway. It's kind of dark, so why bother?
Creating a life in itself is a good thing. Though, because of overpopulation and so on, I think ultimately having a child now is a bad thing. It's a bit of a long story. So in a way I kind of agree with them that with the final result that having a kid is a bad thing. But not for a fundamental reason like they have.
Right, so yeah, he's basically arguing with the Benatar simple logic that the why bother opening either door? The neutral state is a safe state, and the argument basically is this harm thing is really dangerous, and the good thing is not necessarily a good. I mean, it's not a good from a neutral position. It's only a good if you need it. It basically is an addiction syndrome that life functions as, and if you mix the two things together, if you took negative and you took positive and you mixed them together, the negative would neutralize the positive. And it just seems like the more you analyze what life is and what drives people, it just seems clearer and clearer. The fact is there's nothing to be served by creating a human being. There's nothing to be served by creating any kind of animal. So if I could tax you just a minor tax and just say you have to give me your computer, and for that price I'll put 1,000,000 antelope on Mars. I mean, would you pay the price? Are you so horny to put sentient beings on a planet that, you know, you'd give up your computer to create 1,000,000 of them, or even 1,000,000,000 of them? 1,000,000,000 little antelope chewing grass all day. They'll live out their lives and then die. Probably in some kind of not pleasant manner, because that's how most death is. Why would you do that? Yeah, exactly. No, there's no good reason to do that. And that's sort of the point of the Benatar argument, is that there's no good reason to take something from a safe position and elevate it to this unsafe position. That it serves no interest, that the thing itself certainly doesn't have the interest. It has no need. And so need is kind of an important word here. What need is served? And we know as humans we end up needing things to be comfortable. We need to acquire things to be comfortable. We have to have a certain state of quality of life to be comfortable. So those things become necessary to our comfort. Well, the non-existent have no dilemma. They have no need to satisfy. And the only need you would satisfy by creating them is a need you're projecting onto something that doesn't exist. And when they do exist, they will feel, and they will be vulnerable to experiencing real suffering that's now going to be generated, and for what good reason, for what accomplishment. There's no need to serve, and the only objective to obtain is this kind of broken one of satisfying a need that doesn't need to exist. I mean, maybe just deal with with that sentence. What need that life doesn't create does it serve?
I mean, thinking about the asymmetry, I mean, one thing that really makes me not find it very appealing is basically if they're saying that because of a little scrap of pain, like the pain of having a pinprick in your arm at some point in your life, that means that you should never have that child because...
Well, that's taking the argument to the extreme. But the point remains. I mean, yeah, aren't our miseries sort of relative to circumstances? I wouldn't live the life of, billions of people are living right now. I wouldn't live their life for real money. You couldn't pay me real money now to live their life in the future, to finish my life and then go live their life. I wouldn't pay. I wouldn't do it. There's no chance. Billions of them. I mean, there might not even be 10 people on this earth whose life I would actually say, yeah, I'll pay to live that life. I mean, I really don't even have a short list. And the only ones I might want to live would be people who really did something kick ass, like, you know, polio vaccine or something. Something really great. Because it'd be great just to be great. It would be great. That'd be a great feeling. But I'm only saying that from the perspective of an asshole who needs to feel useful and functional and necessary and all that kind of crap. So that's only coming from my own projection of my own stupid desires. It's not coming from anything I can rationally argue. So, I mean, you know, what's your short list of all this goody stuff that we're going to miss out on if I don't exist a seventh time or a 400th time or a 10 millionth time? You mean if I only live once and I only live for whatever, 55 years or something, somehow I'm going to be totally ripped off? It's going to be some harsh deprivation or some meaningful deprivation? Do you think I'm really meaningfully deprivated because I've never seen the pyramids? I mean, is that really a meaningful deprivation? I'm missing out on that? I mean, I never spent 10 seconds of my life worrying about it. Well, maybe 10 seconds. I said, oh, that would be interesting. But look at all the hassles that would come with it, even a trip like that. Who knows what the fuck's going to happen? You can get yourself fucking killed by a bunch of Muslim extremists. Who the hell knows what could happen? Fucking rock could fall off the pyramid, bash your brains out. For what? Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, I've been to some places. I've been to the Grand Canyon. Really nice. But, you know, a half hour later, you're looking for a pinball machine. So, come on. It's all bullshit.
That pinprick in the arm in its life at some point outweighs all the pleasure of the rest of its life.
Yeah, well, all the pleasure, this is always the tricky words, right? Because you don't spend all that much time doing this all the pleasure of, do you really? I mean, you have a bag of potato chips, or you can enjoy your meals. You enjoy, maybe you get a little sex somewhere. Yeah, okay, that's good. Maybe there's some time where you get to take a bath, but I mean, most of your life is not exactly pleasure. You're not exactly indulging in the pleasure, are you? I mean, I know my life hasn't really worked out that way. And if you have a few health issues that cut the margins even, life can be really quite tedious, quite encumbersome in terms of how much pleasure you really do extract out of it, and how much of the game is really just chasing an accomplishment or chasing a goal that you've set for yourself and your ego has set for you as this is what I need to achieve, or I'm just not going to feel settled and comfortable. But I mean, there's a hell of a lot of this life thing ain't no fun at all. I mean, it's just bullshit to be talking these magnificent pleasures I'm purchasing. Yeah, I don't see it that way.
If they think that, it seems to sort of follow from that. That doesn't that follow from an ethos of kind of saying that causing any pinpricks in people's arms, even by your actions.
Well, again, you want to argue what is the most extreme position that requires a little bit of Mr. Spock kind of discipline. I mean, obviously, it's not going to be understandable from your human perspective where you are completely driven by your insatiable ego and appetite. So, it's going to be really hard to explain to a starving man that the rice doesn't have any value, or the chocolate eclair, because the value has already been built up into him. He's already paid for it, essentially. And then to argue to him that it has no value is kind of not going to make any sense. So you have to argue from some understanding that from a valueless position, from a position where you aren't starving in the desert, that you haven't earned a real sense of need, these silly, trite pleasures that you could perhaps describe aren't going to add up to much.
Well, considering people who are already alive, that's wrong. If we follow that ethos, then it would be wrong to ever cause anybody a little bit of pain or inconvenience. Like, for example, if you sit on a crowded train, that's always wrong, because someone else will suffer slightly because they can't take the seat.
Well, you're not even getting it. I mean, going back to your utilitarian argument there, I mean, that's just a function of efficiency. So, I mean, there are circumstances where you can maximize the value of something. I mean, if there's 3 starving people and you have 1 candy bar and only 2 people can survive, um, but if you and one person though needs a candy bar and a half to survive, and the other 2 only need a half a candy bar to survive, then maybe the sensible thing to do would be to give the candy bar to the 2 that can make it into something, rather than waste it on the 1 person who can't make it into anything, and have all 3 die. That would be a waste of the candy bar. So whether it's a bus seat or anything else in your life, you can either utilize it yourself or you can try to find somebody else who can utilize it better than you. But those are real equations, and it's a real fact that one person's comfort is often made out of other people's discomfort, and it's a truth of this thing we call life. And you seem to be just whitewashing that.
If you take a job, somebody else is going to suffer. So, let alone like do some sort of defensive sort of thing, like a war or something, or any kind of force that's going to make someone suffer a little bit.
A little bit.
Pollution.
I mean, come on. I mean, so yeah, you're trivializing it now. So now you're using this argument where you're going to trivialize war, and you're going to maximize the argument about pinpricks or something. So you've just completely distorted perspective here. This isn't anything to do with reality. I mean, you're just arguing a distortion. I mean, I think it could be argued quite rationally that World War II was too expensive. Our civilization isn't worth that kind of price. 50 million people killed in a horrible manner, tremendous suffering and brutality. And what have we accomplished? American Idol? I mean, come on. Come on. It's a bullshit.
And this is just an absolute view that seems to just rule out loads of... Basically, you can't really do anything while you're alive without doing wrong, if you take this kind of pinprick kind of position. Quickly, one last point is that I feel...
Yeah, well, you've really missed the argument there, okay? It's like, again, you can't argue the pinprick argument to something who's driven by pretty much addictive personality disorder. I mean, that's what a human has, addictive personality disorder. We need a lot of stuff. We want for a lot of things. And that is the motivator. So it's not like some fair contest between here's the pain of the suffering you're going to pay for it, and here's the pleasure you're going to derive from achieving it. And just measuring those 2 things, that's not what's taking place here. The scales are definitely getting perverted by a thing called desire.
But, I mean, if you take an example, which is unrealistic admittedly, that you say you could make a baby who definitely doesn't experience any displeasure in its whole life. I'd say surely that is a positive thing. It's not just...
Okay, so, yeah, well, you're going to argue that clearly it's a positive thing. Well, first, it's something that never takes place, right? So it's an impossibility. And I'm going to argue that there's I think, a quite valid argument that you're not going to be able to just dispose of. That no, your satisfactions are made actually out of deprivations, out of being put in a negative state, and it's being in the negative state that makes you aspire to the positive state, the more positive, the less negative state. That life essentially starts you off in the dungeon. It doesn't start you off in some neutral place. It puts you in the bottom, and you stay at the bottom, and it just keeps adding rungs to the ladder. You just keep climbing the ladder, and it just keeps adding more rungs to the ladder. And so it's this kind of treadmill that you're on. You can use the analogy of the squirrel in the wheel, or the analogy of the endless ladder that's being spilled down into the dungeon, and you just keep climbing like you're getting somewhere. But every time you grab a rung, a new rung is going to pop into place. There's going to be a new something you want. So you get who you want, you get what you want, and there will be a new want that will show up and tell you that there's something else you need to climb. And so this is, you get 1, you want 2. You get 2, you want 4. You get 4, you want 8. And this is the way that the psychology works. And so, yeah, there's this perfect example is what? And I would still argue that how many of them would you make? Would you take all the matter in the universe and form them into your little perfect life baby things? These little machines that just sit around and have a perfect life somehow without any struggle, without any deprivation, without any harm. And once you've done that, what would be what would you say about it? Why exactly would it be something worth having? Why exactly would it mean something? Because it's going high, because it's just in a moment of a conscious moment of satisfaction. Again, like I said, that we can't even really contrive, because all of our gratifications, again, are usually built out of the relief of some worry or a concern or fear or something like that. I mean, you have to be poor to win the lottery, so to speak, for the lottery to mean anything. If you have $1 million in the bank, you're not going to bend over for a penny.
The neutral thing to do. That's a positive thing. And again, if we don't take this absolute kind of view of pain and priority.
Well, you said absolute again, absolute. I don't, whatever. Are we arguing with the truth of the circumstances or some just make up your own bullshit crap? I argue there's a truth here, that sentience is real, that the quality of a negative state of conscious being and the quality of a not negative state, those are the two states, not negative and negative, that it's better to have the not negative. But, you can get to not negative by just not bothering.
Then surely if that's a positive thing, then that positive can be weighed up against negatives. I would have thought.
Well, I know, but let's take the real context again, not the fantasy context. So in the real context, millions of people won't share that view. They will kill themselves and go through all kinds of torments because society demands them to force themselves into the square peg, the round hole, all that syndrome. All this wasted energy, all this wasted grief. For what? I mean, you can't just keep